So are Japanese verb conjugations really as easy as everybody says they are? If so, then why so many so-called Japanese language experts and teachers feel the need to make videos and write entire books about Japanese verb conjugations? It seems to me that the reason why there are so many videos, books, and websites trying to explain how Japanese verb conjugations work is most likely because Japanese learners all over the world are having a hard time understanding the rules. It's not rare to hear native Japanese speakers on the internet say Japanese verb conjugations are easy. That in itself seems to be an indication that native Japanese teachers can't relate to the challenges Japanese learners face. After years and years of research, I came to the conclusion that traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules are full of imprecisions. And that's the main reason why mastering Japanese verb conjugation is so difficult for so many Japanese students all over the world. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started learning Japanese in the 90s. No internet. The first thing I learned was the kanji with a book called the Most Essential Kanji or something like that. It took me 6 months. Yeah, it sounds crazy. I know I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't done it myself. 6 months learning the kanji every day, 3, 4, 5 hours every day while working in the Mexican Caribbean as a snorkeling instructor, doing snorkeling tours to the reefs. Anyway, those were really good times. Anyway, then after a few years of studying Japanese by myself, I moved to Japan in 2003 and lived in Okinawa for 4 years and 4 years in near Tokyo, in Urawa City. Then after that, in 2011, after the big earthquake and the nuclear meltdown of Fukushima in March 2011, I came back to Mexico and started working as a Japanese translator for Japanese automotive companies such as Mazda and Honda, working at the production lines. I did that for 10 years. And in 2020, when we had the COVID-19, most car manufacturing companies in Mexico shut down. So a lot of us Japanese translators had to go. And ever since then, I haven't been using Japanese. So that's been, let's say, it's about 4 years that I haven't used Japanese at all. Also, let me tell you a little bit about my English. English is not my first language. I started learning English at around 19 years old. And I lived in the United States around the late 80s for about 5 years, thinking back to Mexico. And I haven't lived in an English-speaking country after that. So it's been more than 30 years that I haven't lived in an English-speaking country. So that's all I want to say about myself. Today, I want to talk about a very important subject. These videos that I'm doing, what I'm doing here is not just for beginners. beginners will profit the most from my videos. But these videos, they're not just for beginners. Even advanced Japanese speakers can profit from what I'm going to share here with you in this video and the rest of the videos that I'm going to be uploading. Okay, so the subject today is about irregular verbs. Mastering Japanese verb conjugation rules is the key to mastering Japanese in a short time. And I'm not the only one who's saying that.
Today we're going to talk about verbs. So this video is for beginners and people who feel like their Japanese is getting rusty. The reason why I'm going to talk about verbs today is because learning verbs and learning verb conjugations is really, really important in Japanese. And
okay, let's look at this web page. It's called Lingo Deer. And look what it says. Quick introduction. Without a doubt, the key to becoming fluent in Japanese in no time is to grasp a really good understanding of Japanese verb conjugation early on, in the beginning. Verbs are the very foundation of the language. In fact, a sentence requires only a verb to be grammatically correct. With knowing as little as a few basic verbs, you can already express yourself and get by in Japan. So far so good, okay? So we agree that verbs are the foundation of the language and that they are the key to becoming fluent in Japanese in no time. That's what I've been saying for years. Here we have this website, which is written by a Japanese native, I think. But then, here's where the imprecisions start. Then, okay, so is it difficult to learn Japanese verb conjugation? And then it says, learners often apprehend diving into Japanese grammar, anticipating that verbs will be somewhat challenging. But the truth is, Japanese verb conjugation is actually quite straightforward, with hardly any exceptions. The few irregular verbs are even actually regular in their irregularities. Okay, so here we have the case of a native stating that learning Japanese verb conjugation is quite straightforward, which means easy. And then he says that there are very few exceptions. And then if we go down here, okay, so here we go. According to this person, this teacher, and well, here we have sample of traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules. And in traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules, they insist that there are only two irregular verbs. These two, Kuru and Suru. That's what all traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules state. And most teachers on the internet are saying the same. Everybody's stating the same. Everybody's using traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules. Now let's hear what this sweet Japanese girl has to say.
there are also irregular verbs. Suru, to do, and kuru, to come. So these are the only verbs that conjugate. A little bit weird. It's not like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Craziness. It's like, you can, once you sit.
Okay, so here we have another example of a native Japanese teacher who insists that there's only two irregular verbs in Japanese. But then we go back a little bit, and then
the good news is conjugating a verb in Japanese is not hard. The only thing you usually have to do is change.
Okay, again, another Japanese native saying that conjugating is not hard. That all you have to do is just change a little letter.
The last do sound into one of a, I, U, E, O sounds because we only have 5 vowels.
Okay, I agree with that.
Right? That's less than a lot of languages.
My system actually is based on that premise that there are 5 vowels, and that's how I treat my Japanese verb conjugation rules.
We only have a, I, we also change kaku into kaka, or kaki, or kaku. That's a bit straightforward, but kake, or kaku, and add a little bit more. And you get the, negation, past tense, and a lot of things. But there are a few exceptions, not that many. For example, there is a verb.
Okay, so now she's contradicting herself because she's saying that there's only 2 irregular verbs, and now she's saying that there are exceptions. And if we look up the meaning of irregularity, let's go here. Let's look at the meaning of irregularity. Contrary to the rules. Okay? So Suru and Kuru are contrary to the rules. Okay? And now let's look at the definition for exception. And a person or thing that is excluded from a general statement or does not follow a rule. So basically, irregular and exceptions, they're the same. When you say irregular verbs, you're also saying exceptional verbs. Okay, so let's go back to her video.
Kaeru,
So
which means to go home.
Okay, so kaeru is another irregular verb.
And eru has an er ending. So you might think, oh, we just get rid of the last ru and put something. Kaeru, unfortunately, conjugates like the other kind.
Okay, so conjugates like the other kind. So it's an exception. So it's irregular. So we got one more irregular.
So you'd end up changing the last do sounding to something and then make a form. But there really aren't that many. So like if I list common verb.
Now she says, but there aren't that many. Okay, but where are they? Where is a list of all the irregular verbs? Where is a list? Where is a list of all the exceptions? Okay, so we are learning that there are more than just 2 irregular verbs.
Either or either ending, but conjugate like other verbs. There, for example, kaeru to go home, kiru to cut, iru to be needed, to be necessary, and hashiru to run.
Okay, so here she's mentioning at least 1, 2, 3, 4. So Here we have 4 more irregular verbs, right? So it's not just 2. Now we have 4 that she's mentioning here, and 2 that are the only 2, Suru and Kuru, the ones that everybody wants to talks about. Now let's go to Fiverr. I want to show you something in Fiverr. I contacted some teachers in Fiverr, and I asked them if Suru and Kuru are the only irregular verbs. And most of the teachers said, surely enough, said yes, Suru and Kuru are the only irregular verbs in Japanese. There are no more. It's very easy, except for one. Except for one person. Her name is Erisa, and she answered, yes, Suru and Kuru are basic irregular verbs as mentioned. And then she adds, iku and aru are also irregular. Okay, so we have 2 more irregular verbs. So now we are up to 8 irregular verbs. So you guys are beginning to see how it's a fallacy to say that there are only 2 irregular verbs in Japanese. Now this person, Erisa, was also nice enough to include a link. She says, here are some others as well for your reference. So let's click on that link and see what we get. What Japanese verbs are irregular? And then, sure enough, we have Suru and Kuru. And then we have iku. And then we have kureru. Well, kureru is just because it has the imperative form kure. Other than that, but that's not really, that's more like a colloquial way of saying the imperative. As I wouldn't call that the imperative. Anyway, here's another verb, aru. So now we're up to 8. EU is also not irregular, but they're including it here. However, there's a group of verbs, the honorific verbs. They are irregular. Here they are. Irasharu, Osharu, Kudasaru, Gozaru, Nazaru. So here we have 5 of them. So there's 5 more, and 8 that we already counted before. So that would make 13 irregular verbs. 11 of which nobody is acknowledging, except for me and a couple of people here and there. But mostly everybody on the internet, on YouTube, they just keep saying that there's only 2. That's because they're following traditional Japanese verb conjugation rules. Okay, so let me go. Oh yeah, let's go to Jules. Here. Let's see. This is a great guy. I have a high respect for him. He is a self-learner like myself, and he probably speaks better than me. Who knows? My Japanese is rusty right now, but let's see what he has to say.
Okay, so with iter and iter ending godan verbs, how do we tell them apart from ichidan verbs? Unfortunately, the simple answer is that with a single instance of the word, there is no way to tell.
Okay, so here he says there's no way to tell them apart. Well, that's not correct. There is a way to tell them apart. You can make a list. as simple as that. Seconds.
For example, there are some Japanese teachers that try to come up with some
here. This graph that Jules says he doesn't buy into is actually a list of the irregular verbs, but he didn't buy into, so he prefers to ignore it. But the answer is right here. He really is overlooking a list of the rest of the irregular verbs. So hopefully I made my point across that there's more than just 2 irregular verbs in Japanese. And there are more than a dozen. And stating that there's only 2 verbs, it seems to me it's doing a disfavor to Japanese learners. So conclusion, there are more than 2 irregular verbs. If you want to master Japanese, you want to be aware that there are more than only 2 irregular verbs. Because if you continue thinking that there are only 2 irregular verbs in Japanese, then you will never master Japanese verb conjugations. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and look forward to my other videos that I will be uploading